Do you want to be a great lover?
Because I do. Tonight's video is all about what do great lovers have in common? The information that we're going to cover tonight comes from the book Magnificent Sex. We have talked about this book many times now, and there's so much good information in this book that we could make so many videos on it. But we sort of covered part one, and this is ruining your sex life. So we'll link that below. Check that video out. We talk about sort of what not to do, all of the myths that we tend to buy into, and how to change those beliefs so that you can have a great sex life. But tonight we're going to talk about what do great lovers all seem to have in common? What's in the secret sauce? We're going to break it down so that we can all, be a little bit more like these amazing lovers.
Do you want to do the Welcome to the Pleasure Program?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Do you want to talk about who the heck we are?
How about Welcome to the Pleasure Program? I'm Victoria.
I'm Holly.
It's weird to do it that way.
Do you
Go
even
ahead,
know
Holly,
the
you do
spiel?
the rest. No, I
Oh.
I listen to you say it all the time, and I'm still like, what are we saying?
What are we saying? Yeah.
We're two licensed therapists who specialize in sex therapy, here to answer all your questions. That was pretty close.
It's pretty close. Answer all your questions and share our knowledge around all things related to a healthy and pleasurable sex life.
That was what I missed.
We did it. Should we keep that in?
That's up to
We're
you.
just getting really uncut here.
The first piece is that great lovers are sex positive. So they challenge any of the common sex scripts or negative culture beliefs that relate to sex. And if you're curious about what some of those sex scripts are or those negative cultural beliefs, check out our last video that we just posted.
I think that video is really helpful in truly understanding what we mean by sex positivity. And actually, everything else we're about to discuss in our video tonight kind of falls under this category of sex positivity. But I think when people hear that term, they think like, oh, you're just having sex with whoever, whenever you feel like, no shame, like we're not here to judge. And I think that is maybe a misuse of that term because you actually want to have a healthy level of judgment when it comes to the sex you're having and who you're having it with. And it isn't necessarily just about the openness to having sex or not having shame. There's a lot more to it. Transitioning into other qualities that great lovers tend to have in common is they're people who tend to be curious and open-minded and willing to learn. And not necessarily just about sex. Of course, it is important to be curious, open-minded, and willing to learn when it comes to sex, but they just tend to have those qualities about life in general. So they're not people who are very rigid or black and white in their thinking, not very all or nothing. They embrace the nuance of life and of situations. They are okay living in the gray. They're okay maybe not knowing something. When you have these qualities, you're more likely to approach sex in a way that is very sex positive. You're curious about your own sexuality, what turns you on, what turns you off. You're curious about your partner. You're willing to maybe be flexible in kind of how to approach having sex with a partner. And you don't assume that there's only one way to do something or one way to experience pleasure. You are exploratory in your sexual relationships, and that really opens the door to having some really great sex.
Next, great lovers understand that great sex requires great preparation. So there can be a lot of preparation that is needed in order to have quality sex. So some things might include, that they make sure that there's privacy, right? It might be hard to have great sex if your friend's in the next room or your kid's awake or whatever. So they're making plans so that you have a house to yourself, or they took care of bedtime for the kids or whatever. They make sure that there's no distractions, right? There's so many things that could be distracting to their partner. So they might think, oh, my partner gets really kind of dysregulated when there's laundry all over the floor. So I'm going to make sure that that's all picked up so that they're not distracted, so that they can be in the moment. They make sure that maybe they're self-groomed if that's what they like together, or they're primed and ready for great sex, whatever that looks like. It could be mental preparation or physical preparation of some kind. And they make sure to connect with their partner before sex to prepare for it. They might talk with them or dance with them or shower with them, whatever they know might build connection in order to lead to that quality sex.
Mm-hmm. I think too that great lovers kind of are very intentional, right? All of that really speaks to how intentional they are about having sex with someone and intending to have a high quality sexual experience.
Right.
And they kind of take pride in that. They find joy in that. So they might, it builds some anticipation and some excitement for that time together. They might get excited about, the little details, like what are we going to have for, food and drink prior to or maybe after, or, what kind of fragrances do we want to have in the room, or maybe candles that they're lit, or having maybe a fun game that builds connection, like one of those, like conversation card games where you're just like learning more about each other. And they see that as a necessary step, which I think really challenges the common belief that sex should be spontaneous and natural, which we talk about in our This is Ruining Your Sex Life video. And these are all really essential steps to have a high quality sexual experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though they're doing all this great preparation and they're really well intentioned and thoughtful, like you were saying, they don't actually end up expecting that great sex is going to happen, even though they're doing all this preparation and intention.
Paradoxically, right, even though there's all this intention and build up and preparation, they don't expect to have great sex. They're not putting that pressure on themselves to have this like wildly magnificent experience. It sort of just kind of happens. If you're following this formula of, what we're talking about tonight, what all great lovers have in common, if you're inhabiting these qualities and practicing them and these skills, then chances are you're more likely to have a great sexual experience with your partner. But it's not the expectation. There isn't pressure.
They also practice embodiment, which means that they really try to be mindful and focus on their sensation, right? They appreciate pleasure and really try to feel it in their bodies.
Embodiment is one of those like buzzwords, right. Now it's like everyone's talking about it, embodiment, disembodiment, and but I think that we're hearing more about it because we're starting to realize, like, culturally, so many people are not living in the present moment. You are not really living in a way where you're in touch with your own body. You're experiencing your body in this very moment. And so, if you're somebody who has that skill, that you are present, you're able to really tap into a sensory experience, and really without judgment, just sort of, again, being open-minded, being curious. How did that sensation feel? How does this one feel? What if we tried this or that? And you're not thinking about the laundry in the next room. You're not thinking about, the work assignment that you have due tomorrow. You're in the present moment. That really does increase your quality of sex. And that takes practice, that takes skill to sort of let go of distracting thoughts and really bring your focus into the present moment. It's the foundation of mindfulness work, which is sort of the therapist got together and decided to steal from the Buddhist practice of meditation and create their own version of it, mindfulness. It's essentially some of the same principles. We're just, one's a religious practice and one is a therapeutic practice, but they are very similar. So if you'd like to practice how to be more embodied, practicing meditation or mindfulness would really help you get there.
Researchers have also found that great lovers, they know that great sex requires emotional connection. It requires respect of one another and admiration of one another. They don't say that it requires love, even though maybe some of these qualities can maybe seem like love. So you don't have to put the pressure on of being like in love with this person, but there should be some mutual respect and admiration, right? You're caring about their experience, right? And they're caring about your experience, caring about each other's pleasure and your time together, and showing each other's bodies respect and care.
That this person matters, right?
Yeah.
It matters. They matter to you in some way, and that you, you're making that a requirement to have. You could have sex with somebody that you don't necessarily trust or respect or admire. It's not going to be magnificent sex. Is essentially, if you want to have great sex, this is part of the secret sauce.
Right. And if you're watching this saying like, oh, I have great sex with people I don't really trust or know, maybe there's more you're missing out on, actually. So let's be curious. Maybe you could have even better sex. How cool is that?
Keep watching our videos and you'll get there. You'll get there. So the next one here comes as a surprise to no one, that great lovers are more likely to explore new things with their partners, with their sexual partners. They are going to try new things, whether that be sexual or otherwise, which kind of fits with being open-minded, curious, willing to learn.
Yeah.
Maybe they try out a new hobby, or they travel together, or they make something sort of like a game that wouldn't otherwise be. Like, I'm trying to think of what an example of that would be. I'm remembering a list of like creative date ideas that I saw on like Pinterest, and one was how to almost do this sort of, it's not I Spy, like a scavenger hunt in a bookstore, and it sounded so interesting to me, like how to make an experience of going and shopping or going and looking for books like kind of fun and interesting. Just having that ability to behave in those ways and engage with your partner in something in a new exploratory way really translates into the bedroom, right? Well, hopefully you learned something here and you can identify maybe one of these characteristics or qualities that great lovers tend to have, and maybe practice more in your own life and improve your sex life. Let us know. Let us know if you're having magnificent sex, if we missed anything. If there's anything in this list you think would improve your sex life, we're curious.
Yeah. And also, not to beat a dead horse, but please like keep in mind that none of the things that we said had anything to do with genitalia size. Because that seems to be what people think. It boils down to being a great lover. And it's like,
we have to say it again. We have to say it again. Oh my God. No one said anything about your level of attractiveness. No one said anything about, no one actually said anything about genitals at all in this book. Great lovers did not talk about how any particular sex act or even orgasm was not part of the secret sauce. I keep saying that. Maybe that's annoying.
Right, I like it. No, I like it.
None of that is actually part of what makes for a magnificent sexual experience. Yeah. So
it's a hill I will die on.
It's a hill we will both die on. Yes. Well, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next one.